Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Jake Williams Show. I am your host, Jake Williams, episode 32. Yes, a few things. I'm doing video again if you're watching this on YouTube, so that's exciting. For those of you that just listen to the audio version, same show, nothing new. I'm glad you're still here with me. I do value those people that do listen to this in the audio form. That's out of the way. Now, I want to also talk about this episode. This originally was supposed to be all about Luke's bachelor party and all the shenanigans we were getting into in Kansas City. But as bachelor parties go, we got way too drunk and then very hungover. And we had to leave the Airbnb a little bit earlier than we expected. And by the time everybody got home, especially me, I had another 2 hours before I could get home. Everybody just kind of said, let's not do it. Let's just go to sleep because we're hungover. Understandable. That's okay. Don't worry. You can tell by the title. We're talking about something else today. Shazam.
Shazam!
Now, Shazam is a very interesting movie because I don't want to say I didn't have any expectation coming in. I thought the trailers looked really good. I thought they looked fun. I thought they represented something that was going to set Shazam apart from other, not even DC movies, but Marvel movies, any superhero movie. It was showing me that it was really appealing to a childhood wonder that I don't think a lot of superhero movies have. And DC is probably the biggest offender of that. So that was even more surprising that in this DCEU, they managed to make a movie that's compelling and heartfelt, and it's about family, and it's about friends. And I also want to get this out of the way. You can get my spoiler-free complete review up on loudandopinionated.com. Go there, because this episode I am completely spoiling everything. I feel like a week after the movie came out, that's plenty of time for you guys to see it, right? I don't feel like I'm being too crazy to do a spoiler-filled episode here. The funny story about Shazam. I had not planned to see it last weekend. I had expected to just wait and see it, catch it on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, just because where I live, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, that's usually the cheaper time to go see movies now that my movie pass is expired, and it was pretty much dead towards the end. I think the last movie that I saw on a Thursday of release was the Halloween movie. So that says anything about how shoddy movie pass was. But Shazam, I saw it Sunday during the bachelor party, which there's this whole thing where we went to a mall and did a mall challenge. I know that sounds weird, but that is something that Luke likes to do. Luke likes to shop. What can I say? You know, he's a material girl living in a material world. During that time, we managed to say, oh, look, there's a movie theater in this mall, and I wanted to see Shazam. All the other guys hadn't seen it yet. I was like, why not? Let's go see Shazam. We saw it in IMAX, which this is the second movie I've seen in the theater at IMAX. I saw that in IMAX, and that was the first time I've ever done it, and that was when it changed everything for me. From then, I was like, I need to see a movie in IMAX all the time. It's amazing. The sound quality, fantastic. So we go into IMAX, we see the movie, and the biggest thing that came out of that was when we come out, Luke looks to me and says, dude, this is like the first Avengers level of joy that this movie brought me. And I could not agree more with that analysis. And knowing Luke and being friends as long as we have, I completely understood what he was saying. What I'm saying is that when I came out of this, this movie really hit me in a particular way where I did completely feel like those moments when we were kids in the backyard playing superheroes, Batman and Superman and Spider-Man, all these things. This movie takes that, catches all that lightning in a bottle. There's going to be a lot of magic and lightning puns, I'm sorry. But it manages to take everything that we love and adore as kids about superheroes, and puts it all right in front of us in this big bad way in this big movie. It's unbelievable the level of love and care that was put into this product to really make you care and want to see more of it. I cannot wait for the Shazam sequel. I just can't, because it managed to tell me a story, make me care about these characters, make them very believable. Honestly, when I saw the trailer, I was a little worried because I can't think of the actor's name, but the guy who plays Freddy was great in it, and he continues here. He's amazing in this movie. I was a little worried about how they were going to portray him. He had a few jokes in the trailer, but I was really wondering if he was going to be cringy, and it just wasn't going to work. His performance with Zachary Levi is the backbone of this movie, and it's honestly the best thing about this movie. There are a lot of great elements in this movie. I think all the Foster family is great. I think all of the dialogue that they have, all the stuff they do actually feels real. They feel like fleshed out characters. Now, there are moments with a few characters I think that just didn't quite hit or land. It didn't really matter or work. I understand that, but this movie at its core is about family. And the way that they perceive this Foster family, and the way they perceived how Billy feels about family, how Freddy is one of us. Freddy is like a big giant superhero nerd, and he's the guy you would want if you were to get superpowers. The way that they've done that is amazing. I did not expect coming out of Shazam to be like, wow, those are real characters, real dialogue. And yeah, I got to give them props. It was amazing. I know I'm kind of scattershot all over the place. It's just how my mind's working because there's so much I want to talk about this movie. So let's just talk about Zachary Levi's performance first and the Shazam character. I did not know this about Zachary Levi until I was watching the press leading up to this. The dude is just a giant kid. So it was perfect casting to get a guy who really does love the source material and really loves comic books and cares about this stuff. So to see him just have the chain off of him and let him run free and be this goofy 14-year-old in a grown man's body. And I love how much they play up the fact that this is superhero version of Big. And that's, instead of running away and trying to shy away from that, no, this movie leans into it 100%, and it makes the movie that much better. It's so much fun to watch him figure out his powers and figure out how to do these things, and especially how Freddy does it. Are you kidding me? If my best friend at this age, say if Luke got superpowers like Shazam, you better believe I am starting a YouTube channel like Freddy does, and I'm showcasing all the cool shit he can do. Who wouldn't do that? That is such a millennial generation thing to do. Who wouldn't do that? And the fact that they couldn't figure out a cool name for him was even better. Captain Sparklefingers, the Red Cyclone, all of that stuff is brilliantly written because that is exactly how we would do it. In 2019, that is how you would show off your friend's superpowers. You start a YouTube channel, you tell everybody how cool you are, all that stuff. His performance is great, and it really does play up the fact that he's 14, and it really makes it work. Now on to Freddy. Freddy's performance, as I said, is the backbone of this movie. He sort of plays a character that's the nerdy guide to Shazam. He's the guy in the chair. Except, kind of that cliche. But he does it in a way that we can all relate to him. I'm not saying that Ned in Spider-Man Homecoming isn't relatable, but Freddy, there's such a different approach to him where he, unlike, I feel like Ned or something else, he idolizes what Billy can do, but he also knows that he can take Billy down a peg because he knows, I don't know how to phrase this. He knows that Billy is not equipped to do this. And yes, there's a little bit, and they kind of play with that in the movie, and there's a little bit of resentment he has towards Billy, but he knows that Billy can't be a better superhero unless he has Freddy with him. He knows that he has a value where he can say, "Look, this is how you got to do it. I know how this is. I love all this stuff. I've studied all these things." And you're seeing him not just be a guy in a chair, but he's also sort of like, in a way, a better version of a psychic. I don't want to make him sound like he's a psychic because they do make fun of that in the movie. But Freddy adds a whole nother layer to Billy and Shazam because Billy, he's selfish. He shouldn't be Shazam. Wasn't given this because, in the beginning of the movie, you have the wizard Shazam explain that you have to have the purest heart. You can't have any sort of evil in you, and you have to be the perfect version of these people because that's how you can stop the 7 deadly sins. That's what your purpose is. By the time Billy becomes Shazam, the wizard Shazam doesn't really have a choice. He just sees Billy gets transported there, and he's like, "All right, fine. You're the new guy. Here, grab my staff, say my name," which is fantastic in the movie. He says, "Grab my staff and say my name," and Billy's immediate response to that is, "Ew." And it got an instant chuckle out of me, and I was like, "Okay, this is the movie we're going with. It's definitely going to be a teenage boy coming of age, big meets superhero story." And when he says, do this, he's at the end of his rope. He's got nothing. So Freddy knows that Billy isn't a perfect human being to be the superhero. So Freddy is going to have to get in his face and call him out and say, "Look, I needed you to do this. I need you to do this." And essentially say, you need to be better if you're going to have these powers. You're so lucky and you don't understand. You're ungrateful that you have these powers. I mean, what better way to have that? And that's a legitimate conversation that friends have. I've had conversations with my friends where I've said that or they've said that to me, calling each other out, saying, "Hey, you need to be better. This is unacceptable. Things need to change." And Freddy has no problem doing that. So I think that's what makes him more of a companion and a partner than it does necessarily a sidekick, where he's just like, "Oh, gee williger, Billy, you're so great. You're the best wizard." Things like that. As I said, the Foster family plays a really good role in this movie. Again, they're very believable. I liked everything about them. They do feel like legitimate, fleshed out characters and people that are in this world, and it works effectively. The thing that I want to talk about is how they've blended Shazam into the DCEU, where it's a standalone movie, and it's still tied to the universe, but they do it in fun ways. The only real way that you know that it's tied to this universe is through Freddy, because Freddy has memorabilia from the things that happened in the other films. He has a batarang. He has this bullet that shot Superman. He's always wearing superhero themed shirts, and I think his favorite's Aquaman, which they have a really funny the end credits scene where Shazam says Aquaman sucks because he talks to fish. That was great. But that's how they connect it to the universe, and it's a very clever way. It isn't just some throwaway lines. It's just like, okay, so he's wearing these shirts. This is the brand. Oh, there's these little things of memorabilia here and there. There's nothing to say, well, man, when the Justice League had to fight Steppenwolf, or, man, when Superman died, and all these things. There are newspaper clippings on Freddy's wall that show that, and they kind of illustrate what happened there, but that's about it. And I think it does say Superman is back, and the ending to this movie, I'm going to jump right to this because this kind of correlates with what I'm talking about. Towards the end of the movie, there is a part in about the middle, right before the third act, where Freddy said, he's getting bullied, and he says, "Yeah, well, I'm friends with the superhero that's in Philly, and he's going to come here to lunch and kick your ass," kind of thing. And Billy doesn't do that. They get into a fight. So by the time they get to the end of the movie, Shazam shows up. "Oh, hey, good friend of mine, Freddy, you're the best. You're so great." And then the other foster kids show up and like, "Hey, people I'd never met before. who you seem cool. And then the best part of this whole movie is when he says, "Oh, look, there I brought another friend." And it is Superman. Now, the funny thing about that shot is how they did it, because clearly they could not get Henry Cavill to do this. So they just show the S like from the waist up to the chest. And either way, it was such a fun little Easter egg, little cameo to again establish the fact that yes, this is in the DCEU. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with it, but it is in the DC. So yeah, that's just something that I loved, and it worked out really well. Now, why is Shazam magic? And I've touched on it here and there, but I think ultimately for me, what makes Shazam magic and why I feel this way about this movie and I love this movie so much is simply the fact that it took something that was already cheesy on its own and people sort of had an idea of, but they took something that maybe, I mean, when you stack it up against other DC movies, you stack it up against other characters, it's probably not as exciting or interesting or fun. But they've managed to make him the most interesting, fun character in their universe so far. To me, I say it every time. This is the best DCEU movie. It's close. Wonder Woman and Shazam, they're kind of, for me, it's like a seesaw. It's constantly going back and forth. I think what makes me pick Shazam over Wonder Woman is the fact that she's a woman. No, I'm kidding. What makes me pick Shazam over Wonder Woman would have to be the fact that Shazam really doesn't take itself too seriously. It has its moments. There are some dark, gritty moments with the villain and the seven deadly sins, and I'll get to that. But Shazam overall has fun playing in the world that it is. It understands that the whole idea of Shazam is a little silly in and of itself. This 14-year-old kid gets this power where he says the word Shazam, and he gets the power of a wizard, and he has lightning coming from his fingers. And they play that up in a interesting, brilliant way where they're not going overly dark. I'm so sick and tired of when DC says, well, we have to be different from Marvel. We have to be a darker, grittier movie. You don't. Those movies can exist, but not everything needs to be that way. If they made a dark and gritty version of Shazam, it wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. Now, Wonder Woman, on the other hand, does kind of play into that. It's more fun, but there aren't a lot of jokes. It takes itself very seriously. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think what edges it out for me is Shazam, because what I want from these movies, I don't want every movie to be an MCU movie. I don't want every movie to be happy, happy, joy, joy, always happy endings. But Shazam manages to do that, put a little bit of darkness in there, but it manages to always keep me happy, keep me fun. And when I go to a superhero movie, when I go to these movies, especially in theaters, I want to have fun. I want to enjoy myself. Wonder Woman had its moment. I'll admit, when she gets out of the trench in No Man's Land and in that whole fight sequence, dude, I started in the music behind it, dude, I was welling up. I was like, holy shit, this is an awesome moment. I can't believe this is happening. I had those moments. Shazam, I had that throughout the whole entire movie. Once he became Shazam, that movie takes off like a cannon and goes in one direction and one speed, and it does not stop, and it's just so utterly fantastic. So let's jump to the villain. Let's talk about Mark Strong's character. I can't remember the name. Point is, his character is in this movie. Now, there are moments where I felt like, and I said this in my review, that yes, he has some hokey, cliche villain dialogue, and he has cliche villain moments. But this character was given some meat off the bone. And what I mean by that is there is a story. There is things going on with him. It felt like Killmonger from Black Panther, where he has a backstory. The movie opens with him. It doesn't open with Billy. It opens with him experiencing his abusive dad, verbally abusive dad, his verbally abusive brother. They treat him like garbage. They're horrible people. And he gets summoned by Shazam, and this is how we sort of get the exposition of what he's like, you have to be the purest soul and all these other things. And then we find out that darkness starts coming out of him, and he says, no, you're not worthy. You're not ready to be our champion. You feel for this kid. I felt for Mark Strong in this movie because you understand that darkness. You understand why he does that. You don't have a mom, and your brother and your dad think you're just a waste of space, consistently berate you and treat you like crap. And when you try to talk to them and defend your point, they say you're a whiny baby. And then your brother gets in a fight with you, and you end up in a car crash. A brutal car crash, by the way. Holy crap, that was brutal. There are moments of this movie that kind of surprise me, that they do get a little, whoa, that was unexpected. It is a family movie, but I would say at a certain age, I'd say like 10 or higher to watch this movie, because holy cow, there are some moments that are pretty graphic. But you understand his darkness, and you understand his craving for power, because his whole life he has been treated like this and buried and told he was nothing and meant nothing. So when he has those moments where he becomes a bad guy and does some bad stuff, you're like, I get it. I totally get it. And so when he gets the power of the 7 deadly sins, shows up to his dad's board meeting and just murders everybody, completely justified. I don't want to say that people that have those issues should do that, but I'm saying in the context of this movie, it feels justified. It feels warranted. And I got to mention, the 7 deadly sins are well designed in this movie. You get a guy, oh gosh, I'm so bad at this. I should have got names before I started recording. The guy that directed this before he directed the horror movie Lights Out, and that's kind of what his career has been up to this point. He made, like, when he was a student, he was making horror films that way. And I will say, Lights Out is a very enjoyable horror movie, and I think he really embraces his horror roots in some of these moments, because there are moments that are legitimately scary and make me think that, anybody less than 10 years old probably shouldn't see this movie, because it is pretty scary at parts. So his character, as I said, very, very believable, very scary and imposing. But there are moments where he's the cliched bad guy, where he says kind of cliche things, where they do play that up in the end of the movie. One of the final confrontations he has with him is probably one of the funnier jokes in the movie. They fly off and they're chasing each other and to have their climactic final battle. And when they do, there's this moment where they have their stare down, but they're like a mile apart in the air. And Mark Strong is just saying this like super cliche, dreary villain speech, and Billy's like, "What? Huh? What are you saying something? I can't hear you. We're too far away." Like, those little bits are so great, because that is the movie playing with its tropes, playing with expectations. And I think Mark Strong did a pretty serviceable job. I'm glad they didn't kill him off. I'm glad they're going to probably do something else with him. Although I think they're going to save Black Adam, obviously, for the sequel, because The Rock produced this, which I did not know that The Rock produced it until he posted a video about it on his Instagram. I was like, oh, well, shit. I didn't even know. I want to get back to the ending Get to the ending where there is a twist that legitimately worked for me. And I was still into the movie, and I still really enjoyed it. There's a part where they're fighting, and the 7 deadly sins are there. Mark Strong's there, and it's part where Billy comes in, kneels down. You think he's going to give up. But he manages to get a hold of the staff that Shazam used to turn him in to the next Shazam. And he starts to think, and this is where he gets the idea. This is where you release all your powers. This is where you get potential. And he gets the idea, oh, all the foster kids touch this and say my name. And they say Billy, and I, again, should not have gotten a good laugh out of me, but it did, because then he has to be like, no, no, say the thing that I say to become this guy. And then they all say Shazam, and then boom, we get the Marvel family, or in this case, the Shazam family. And that should have, I feel like it could have gone two ways for me. I could have been like, oh man, really, they're doing that? Instead, I was like, no way, they're doing that. That's rad, dude. I'm so excited. Like, I got legitimately excited in the movie theater to see those characters become the Shazam family, because the movie made sure to focus on its characters, focus on this foster family, and make sure that when that moment happens, it's impactful and you feel it. Could they have saved it as like a post-credit scene or a stinger scene? Sure, they could have done that. But I love that they kept it in the movie, and the third act is all of the Shazam family fighting the 7 deadly sins. It really added to that finale, because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, is he really going to have to fight every individual thing, and he's going to constantly have to save them and everything? No, it didn't happen that way. It managed to make their characters not feel like damsels in distress, and it works out so well. And yes, there's a lot more to this movie than what I'm saying. I just hope that what I'm saying you can agree with, because man, did I not expect to really, really, really fall in love with this movie as much as I did. The suit looks great, and at first I thought, man, that just doesn't work for me, because obviously there's padding, and Zachary Levi is not that big, but man, does that suit work. It looks so damn good. And the textures of it, the feel of it, the glowing light, and I thought, man, the glowing lightning bolt would be cheesy, but no, man, it works. It's everything about this movie that shouldn't have worked works, and I think that's a testament to these filmmakers, because these guys, it was everything they did was deliberate, except for maybe that Pedro scene where he has an F and he throws the water paper away. It didn't really make sense to me, but I guess that's the way to get the Notebook. I'm digressing. Everything they've done in this movie has been deliberate. Everything has a purpose, and everything continues to reestablish the fact that, hey, this is a fun movie. We're having fun. This is about family and the people that surround Billy Batson, and almost the part of him having the magic powers of a wizard and being a superhero kind of take a back seat to the legitimate drama that he has in his life. And one more thing that I want to kind of talk about before I wrap up is the story of his mom and how that whole situation came to be, where the whole reason he's in foster care is he was at a carnival and he has a flashback, and his mom's throwing darts at balloons trying to win him a tiger, which, pay attention, there's a tiger there. Shazam has a talking tiger. Shout out to Adam for pointing that out in the Easter eggs that he found. Here she can't. She's like, it's okay. I got you a compass. So wherever you go, you'll find your way home. Always find your way home with a compass. And it's a really sweet sentiment moment. And then it's followed by something scary where he loses his mom and he can't find her, and he's lost her ever since. Which is amazing what that movie did, because I didn't think logically about this scenario. I've been like, well, maybe she's dead if he hasn't found her this long. But his whole quest is to find her. And then when he does find her, that's when the movie hits you with an emotional gut punch. And that is, I think, done in a way that was so effectively that you really get the idea now that Billy understands what family is. Because she's like, I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing. I got kicked out of my house. I didn't know how to raise a kid. And then they play back that scene, but they play it through her perspective, how it really happened. And it plays with the idea of childhood memories and how we look at things with rose-tinted glasses. And I thought that was so cool and so unique to this genre and so unique to the DCEU. I really enjoyed that scene, and the emotional gut punch followed by the moment when you're like, yes, let's do this. Because he didn't really have a huge suit-up moment. He didn't have that moment that everybody sees where it's this quick cuts and like, yeah, let's rock and roll. you see that at the end of this scene because he's like, whatever, leaves, walks up to the top, hears Freddy call him, knows that they're in trouble. So what does he do? He runs, jumps off the top of a building, says Shazam, boom, turns into Shazam, and he's ready to rock and roll, and he flies over there to save his family. That was like, yes. That is where the movie really hit home. I'm like, man, I enjoy the hell out of this thing. And I hope you do too. If not, I'm sorry I spoiled everything for you. What did you think of Shazam? Comment below. Let me know. And as always, like, subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, click the bell so you know when more episodes of our shows go live. And speaking of other shows, give them a listen because we do so much work on these other podcasts in the Loud and Opinionated family. Of course, you can listen to Loud Sports. That is where I co-host with Brandon Plecker and Paul Rubidoux. And all the fun topics and news in sports, we talk about pretty much everything there. And then you can check out the Underachievers gaming podcast I co-host with Chance Oliver and John Sparks. Occasionally we do this thing called Party Chat where it's us playing video games. Most of the time, we don't even talk about the game. We're actually talking about these movies, and mostly superhero movies. Probably not Shazam because I don't think the other guys have seen it. But yeah, check that out. If you want to write for loudopinionated.com, you can do that. Send in whatever you want to talk about to beloud@loudopinionated.com. We're not here to silence your opinion. Even if I don't agree with it, I will still put it up on my site, usually 300 to 1,000 words. And if you use pictures, please cite where you got the pictures from. We want to give credit to the hardworking photographers out there. And as always, you can like this show and subscribe anywhere. Like I said before, loudopinionated.com, wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, and most importantly of all, be loud and be proud.